See, I accidentally screwed up by publishing one of my second videos early, so I'm going to do a bonus video for everybody, which means nothing to most people who are probably watching this video anyway, like at a different point. But here's the story. It's from the Daily Wire, and I saw this. She said he assaulted her. Witnesses in the room said it didn't happen. He was still suspended. This is a story about a woman who was sleeping under the covers. A man was drunk and laying on top of the covers in a communal room where other people were there, and the woman claimed she was assaulted by the guy who was on top of the covers. No one saw anything happen. There was no evidence of anything happening, and he still had to defend himself. He was still suspended. And so I want to talk a little bit about false accusations and a lot of the responses I'm getting from progressive activists when they talk about why false accusations aren't important. So I don't want to read through the bulk of the story. It's actually a really long story. This is by Ash Shao I hope I'm pronouncing that right, of the Daily Wire. A female student claimed a male student assaulted her while they lay next to each other on a bed one night after drinking. Just a few feet away, the man's girlfriend and roommate were talking and neither heard nor saw anything corroborating the woman's claims. The school suspended him anyway. In a scathing ruling, Judge Donna D. Geck wrote how deficient the University of California, Santa Barbara's investigative process was and ordered the school to reverse its decision against the male student. A university held a hearing to determine whether a student violated its student code of conduct, Geck wrote. Noticeably absent was even a semblance of due process. When the accused does not receive a fair hearing, neither does the accuser. She contended that the male student, identified in court documents as John Doe, was denied access to critical evidence, denied the opportunity to adequately cross-examine witnesses, and denied the opportunity to present evidence in his defense. Okay, he ended up winning like a year later. But he had to go through this whole process where he was accused of assaulting a woman, even though they were in a communal room. No one saw anything. He was on top of the covers. Apparently, according to the story, the woman who accused him was on some kind of antidepressant, which the side effects could be hallucination, night terrors, sleep paralysis. And so apparently, according to this guy, this woman woke up freaking out, and they were like, whoa, what's going on? And then later, she accuses him, and two other people in the room, sitting right next to where this bed was, were like, nothing happened. Okay, the first thing that needs to be said, abuse, assault, they're wrong. I don't think anyone, most people, like 99.9% of people, like people in this country, agree it's wrong. What's frustrating to me is that there's like this weird authoritarian mindset among many people associated with the far left in this regard. I made a video about false accusations on my main channel a couple days ago. I made a post about it on Facebook. I pointed out how a man is more likely to be falsely accused than a rapist is to actually go to jail. This was not calling, like, I don't understand why they got mad. Genuinely thought, everyone would be like, this is something we can rally behind. Innocent people shouldn't be in prison, rapists should be. But instead, feminists and left-wing activists were actually angry at me saying, what's my agenda for pointing this out? And I'm like, I thought they would be like, hey, that's a bad thing. I thought the left would agree rapists should go to prison and it's bad that they're not. And I thought the right would agree they should as well, and it's also bad that innocent people are being locked up. Now look, I think the left would also be upset with innocent people being locked up. I just think the focus is crossed, right? When we talk about false accusations and why they're a problem, it doesn't in any way diminish people who are actually victims. And this is what's mind-blowing to me. That, when Susan Collins speaks in defense of Kavanaugh, she went on this really long tirade about how sexual abuse is wrong, how we want to believe women, but there has to be evidence for due process and things of this nature. And she specifically said, hey, it's really, really bad. Like, we all understand it's bad. Somebody commented, somebody I've known for a long time, when they said, at what point, like, how many innocent people being imprisoned is too much? Like, we need to get these criminals, basically. I'm trying to succinctly paraphrase what she said, but the idea was that there is an acceptable number of innocent people in prison to deal with these criminals, these abusers, and I disagree. There is never an acceptable amount of innocent people in prison, period. And we should never allow a system to arbitrarily imprison people. And it's so crazy I have to explain this, right? We look at this story where these schools usually just don't want to deal with it and they don't want to get sued. So they end up saying, just believe the women, right? Just side with them even if there's no evidence. Listen, the Innocence Project has somewhere around 70% of its cases. Okay, let me start over. If you're not familiar, the Innocence Project looks into cases and exonerates people who are wrongly convicted. Out of 360 cases, 70% were false accusations. False accusation doesn't mean the woman made the story up. This is what I think the left gets wrong. They think when someone says false accusation, they're implying women are lying about it. You see Lena Dunham saying things women lie about, their weight, things women don't lie about, assault. Right. False accusation means the accusation against an individual was false, meaning not true. Most of these end up being women who were actually assaulted who misidentified somebody for a lot of reasons. That means the Innocence Project has around 70% of its cases are people who were falsely accused. We should not allow, these are hundreds of cases. This is just one organization doing this. There shouldn't be innocent people. Now, there's a few other important facts. 2 to 10%, that's the number most people give. That 2 to 10% is what we know to be proven false. That means there may, look, if the Innocence Project is exonerating people, that means for a period of time when they did the study for 2 to 10%, there were innocent people in prison who were later exonerated. That means the number is probably slightly higher, or to some degree higher. There's a channel called Freedom Tunes. They made a really good point. I don't know if you've ever seen Freedom Tunes, but they're pretty funny. But the creator Seamus said, we know that 2 to 10% are provably false. However, that doesn't mean the rest are true. It means that the overwhelming majority are unknown, unproven one way or the other. Only a small percentage are proven to be true. And this is a travesty for actual victims. Don't get me wrong. And that's what I think needs to be stressed. And I don't understand why so many people associated with the far left don't understand that we are upset about all injustice. That includes the victims of assault, and it includes the innocent people who are misidentified or falsely accused. But the point he brings up, which is great, is that it's illogical to assume that simply because only 2 to 10% are false, 90% are true, just as it would be illogical to assume that because only around 10% or so are proven true, 90% are false. The logic doesn't work for either. The fact remains that we just don't know what the numbers are, and we need to admit that. So the point is, we can't imprison people based off accusations. We can't condemn them based off accusations. We need evidence. So let's read back into this story a little bit, because I don't need to go through the whole bulk of what happened. Basically, he was accused even though witnesses said that nothing happened. Even though the woman who accused him was wearing a shirt and underwear under covers, like she was under a blanket, he wasn't. So let's see. Jane claimed during the hearing, according to existing notes, she was awoken from her sleep by an intense throbbing pain and felt her shirt being lifted. She claimed someone was touching her, but she didn't know who or what. Started to panic, frozen, paralyzed. She claimed she pretended to sleep, hoping whoever was hurting her would stop. She heard 2 people on the couch next to her, but they didn't appear to hear any of this. She claimed John unhooked her bra and heard the sound of a cell phone camera. She thought someone took a photo of her chest. Essentially, there is a possibility that she's telling the truth. We just don't know. However, in this case, you actually have undercovers, overcovers, and 2 witnesses sitting next to them saying nothing happened. And not only that, but the woman who accused the guy was best friends with the guy's girlfriend. The girlfriend was a witness who claimed that if she saw something or any evidence to suggest there was actually an assault, she would have been furious about it, but there was nothing. The school basically steamrolled through the process. And that meant this dude who was accused got suspended, his academic career put on hold, and his claim essentially in the story is that it's possible the antidepressants she was taking had a side effect where she was having sleep paralysis and hallucinations and experienced something that may or may not be true. Actually, it says right here, John tried to question Jane about the side effects of the antidepressant she was taking the night of the alleged assault. Those side effects made worse by consuming alcohol included hallucinations and sleep paralysis and night terrors, according to John's testimony. I have to say, first and foremost, yes, we want to listen and believe, but as I said before, listen and believe, but verify. And what that means is, I will believe you're being honest. I will give you the benefit of the doubt. But if you don't have proof, I can't do anything. And if there is evidence to the contrary, I can't do anything. Plain and simple. If 2 witnesses are going to claim nothing happened, the guy's on top of the covers, then what do you expect anyone to do? The fact that the school would take action against this individual is a travesty of justice. And that's why a judge, he sued, lost, and then went and he appealed, and on appeal, he actually got it reversed. The court denied his writ of mandate request, and he appealed. It is that appeals court that now reverses the lower court decision in a scathing ruling that makes UCSB takes UCSB to task for how it treated John. It is ironic that an institution of higher learning where American history and government are taught should stray so far from the principles that underlie our democracy, the court stated. This case turned on the committee's determination of credibility of the witnesses. Credibility cannot be properly decided until the accused is given the opportunity to adequately respond to the accusation. The lack of due process in the hearing here precluded a fair evaluation of the witnesses' credibility. Legally. In this respect, neither Jane nor John received a fair hearing. The court reversed the school's judgment and ordered the lower court to grant his writ of administrative mandate. It also awarded him costs on appeal. This is good news, but it's also kind of bad news. The bad news is that he had to go through this in the first place, okay? The court ultimately reversed it. Let me just end by saying, false accusations are relatively rare by most metrics we can see, but they exist. They include a small percentage of women who make the stories up, but they overwhelmingly include women who falsely accuse people who are the wrong people. The point is, false accusation doesn't mean made up story. And that's the important thing that needs to get across to people. That there are innocent men, overwhelmingly black men, who were falsely identified, falsely accused of a crime they did not commit and went to prison for it for decades. That is a travesty of justice that should not be allowed to continue. That doesn't mean we give a higher priority to these cases. Quite literally, our society, first and foremost, prioritizes special victims in these cases. In fact, the Innocence Project only has 360 exonerations, okay? That means our society overwhelmingly focuses on special victims of assault. Plain and simple. But it doesn't mean we should leave behind those who are innocent. Just because we're focused on one, it doesn't mean we ignore the other. We want to protect all of the innocent, everyone. Anyway, thanks for checking out. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 4.